We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you something a little different. Today, we're talking about canceled games, not those storied classics. So stick around, take a load off, and join us as we take a cancel culture trip down memory card lane. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I hope these words find you well. Hello, and welcome to the 46th episode of our Video Game Nostalgia Podcast, A Trip Down Memory Card Lane. Each week, we take a look back at one release during the current week in gaming history, and we talk about it. While doing so, we hope to teach you something new about the game, what it took from the world in its inspiration, or what it gave back to it in its legacy. As always, I'm joined by my co host, who is about to be just as surprised as our listeners at what I'm going to say next, my brother, Rob Casson. Rob, a little curious?
I sure am, Dave.
Rob, I'm going to tell you that for the first time in 46 episodes, I am going to deviate from the planned content.
What?
46 weeks. We've spent 46 weeks doing this. I planned out every episode. You know I planned out every episode. And this week, I just don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Not the
Okay.
planned content. Not the planned content. We're still going to have the podcast. We're definitely still going to have the podcast. We're definitely still going to have the podcast. Don't go anywhere. But yeah, we're going to change it up a little bit. So before I get to that, though, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good actually. You'd think that something would be wrong because I'm changing my mind and writing an audible, but nothing's wrong. I just want to be different. That's all. So everything is good. Everything is great. What you playing this week? You were playing Rocket League when I dragged you away to record a podcast.
Yeah, I've been playing a little bit of Rocket League, a lot of Tarkov still, and RuneScape.
Awesome.
How about yourself?
Honestly, the only game that I've taken any time to play in the last week has been some Ghost of Tsushima. I wrapped up the first act of the game, which is like, it's an island separated into three separate parts. So I pretty much liberated the whole first island, and I'm about to start the second one. So Ghost of Tsushima.
Right
What
on.
I've also taken some time to play the game that we were supposed to talk about today, which was Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Now, look, we've talked about KOTOR. In case you didn't know, Knights of the Old Republic is also known as KOTOR. We've talked about KOTOR. KOTOR is a game on my list of games I wish I would have played, but haven't. It's on my list of games that everyone recommends to me, as in a David, you really should be playing this game. You love Star Wars, you love role-playing games, you love video game. What's there not to like? There's just any which way that KOTOR should have been on my list. And I started it this time. I started it, I played through 3, 4, I don't know, maybe 5 hours, about to wrap up the opening sequence, and frankly, it's just starting to get good, and I actually want to play it. And I don't want to talk about this game as like it's been hyped and recommended to me and so on and so forth for so long. I don't want to play this game before I've had an opportunity or talk about this game before I've had an opportunity to play it like in its entirety. Does that make sense?
I think so, Dave. I think that's fair, and it's definitely something that obviously it's your right to do so, but I think it's fitting that you truly want to pay homage to the game because it's from everything you've heard about, it's a great game.
Have you played through it?
I have started it, and then my game got into a literal like crash. So I got frustrated with it and haven't gone back with but I will. I've been playing on it.
So everything I understand about the game is that the first part, the opening area, is slow. It's kind of a doldrum, but once you get past it, the game really opens up and really gets good. And I'm right at that part where it's about the game's getting open up, and I agree. Like I can see the potential, it has the opportunity to get good, and I'm excited to see what's next. And like I said, frankly, I would just like to have the opportunity to do that before we talk about it. And so it's going to have to go back into the vault. And maybe we'll return again at a later time, a bonus episode, or maybe this time again next year. I don't know. But frankly, right now, I haven't been able to give it the attention it deserves. And therefore, I think I'm going to exercise my veto powers and pass on it. Now, with that being said, I thought it was fitting that since I've canceled or scheduled content, that I would talk about something else canceled in its place. We've spent 46 weeks now, 46 straight weeks, talking about notable games in history and other topics associated with them. But I've always wanted to find the time to talk about other topics that necessarily don't fit the criteria. Like, for instance, canceled games, which we're going to cover today, or topics not tied to one game. Like, for instance, when you and I sat down and started talking about this, one of the things that I thought would be fun to do was to focus on the history of specific gaming mechanics. As we've changed and modified and kind of refined how we write and approach our episodes, we've kind of talked a little bit about this, but frankly, in case our listeners don't know, we planned out our topics for the entire year, and I wrote the web code for it, and I wrote or I did all the graphics for it, and I planned everything, because we do this as a pastime, and on top of our jobs and our hobbies and everything, it requires a little bit of planning. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so, like, these are things that I was kind of hoping to add to the repertoire for 2022 because we planned through 2021, and I'm still holding out hope. Well, I'm not holding out hope. We're gonna do it. There's things I want to do. Like, I think it'd be fun to talk about like the history of health bar mechanics, or the history of jumping in games, or just looking at how mechanics themselves have progressed. And there's still gonna be time for that. But like I said, I looked at some of the other games that came out this week. Prey, the original Prey came out. Joust came out. In any case, there were some other opportunities, but still, I just kept going back that I wanted an opportunity to look at something that we would normally touch on. So today, I thought it would be fitting because we talked about it recently to talk about Project Titan. Do you remember what Project Titan was, Rob?
Honestly, all I can think of is Titanfall. So I'm thinking that it's still something with like giant robots, but if not, then I have absolutely no idea.
Maybe robots, I don't know. Well, there were two Project Titans in existence, and we actually covered one. We covered one when we covered Overwatch, because Overwatch's early prototyping was known as Project Titan. But there was another Project Titan that we touched on really briefly that I thought was interesting that I really wanted to revisit. And that was the fact, and it was everybody's takeaway for that episode, the fact that there was a Project Titan that was the code name for a canceled massively multiplayer online role-playing game set in the Halo universe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know. I know you listen but don't listen. That's okay. I forgive you.
I
So,
just forgot, man.
I'm
It's
just
hard to retain all this information. Jeez. I
tell
didn't know
me
there'd be a
about it.
test about it at the end of the semester, Dave.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it. First thing that listeners you need to know is that the Project Titan was developed by Ensemble Studios. And I'm gonna save the history of Ensemble Studios for one of their actual games that wasn't canceled. Um, Ensemble Studios is the studio most notably known for making the Age of Empires series. They made all the Age of Empires 1, 2. They made Age of Mythology. They made Age of Empires 3. they developed Halo Wars, the first real-time strategy game in the Halo universe. And while they were working on that, they were also working here on Project Titan. Between Halo Wars and Titan, that was the end of Ensemble Studios because it was shuttered thereafter. So I don't know if you can look at this as Project Titan leading to their downfall or what. Ensemble closed. A lot of them went to a company called Robot Entertainment. First thing Robot Entertainment did was called Age of Empires Online. Ever since then, they've really only done the Orcs Must Die series, and that's pretty much it. So Ensemble Studios, right? Ensemble Studios started working on Titan. Really, I don't know. Let's not say working, but the idea for it went all the way back to 1998. And what happened in 1998 was the release of Ultima Online. Ultima Online was the for me, it was the first massively multiplayer online role playing game. Like that was the definitive MMORPG. You know, I know nowadays everyone is used to WoW. I think now if you were to ask the later generations what the definitive one is, WoW. Well, even me, I would say WoW. But before there was a WoW, there was Ultima
Wow.
Online. Wow. I was just watching Loki, and Owen Wilson is in Loki, and the moment I saw him, all I could think of was, wow. So Ultima Online comes out, and Ian Fisher, a game designer in Ensemble Studios, began pitching a sci-fi MMO to Ensemble Studios because he was a fan of the genre. Honestly, a lot of us were. You know, MMO, I'll put it this way. Online gaming back in 1998 was a novelty, and an MMORPG upped that to the nth degree because, like, 1998 we had what did we have games wise? We had Age of Empires, and I played Age of Empires. I played Age of Empires Online, and you played on dial up, and it was painful. I mean, it was like you make a move, and then you wait 30 seconds for the server to catch up and recognize your move, and you just move on. It was something else, you know. And Ultima Online was pretty good. It was an online, MMORPG with a bunch of people, and like I said, it was a step up. So you had WoW that had come out originally in 2004, so some years later, which is about when development on Titan began. Basically, what had happened was that's my favorite way story start. So basically, they wanted to compete with WoW. WoW came out. WoW was an instant success. And suddenly, like every new game in a genre, let's be honest, every time there's a breakout game in any genre, there are any number of companies that are trying to capitalize on it, right? What's the last genre you can think of that was invented that everyone jumped on the bandwagon?
Battle Royale.
Thank you. That was my thought too. Yeah, exactly. So PUBG came out, right? PUBG came out, and that was the game that that cemented that genre, and suddenly everyone needed to do a battle royale. And now it's included in like every darn game. But when WoW came out, basically everyone wanted to jump on the MMO bandwagon because WoW was it was insane. It was just absolutely crazy. So about this time, Ensemble Studios started development on Project Titan, and they had a budget of around $90 million. To support this project, there was a 60,000 square foot campus commissioned. There was 40 staff hired in 3 teams. Some of them were working on Halo War. Some of them were working here in Titan. And basically what they did is they made a game that was WoW, but that looked like Halo in terms of like the world that it was on and the interface that it was on, and so on and so forth. And so yeah, so they made Titan, and they literally made a Halo game that looked like it. So Titan was Titan was basically, and this is the other tie-in today. Titan was basically said to be set in an era before the whole Halo series. like thousands of years before the Halo series and what we call the era of the Forerunners in Halo lore. And why that's important is because they took inspiration for that from KOTOR. Because KOTOR is the same concept, where the Old Republic is literally like 4,000 years before any of the modern Star Wars movies, which is what we're used to. So this was a game that was set in the same universe, but was set to develop the early lore, thousands of years prior, in the same way, like I said, that KOTOR was going to do so for the Star Wars setting. But even still, a lot of the same stuff, if you know Halo, a lot of the same stuff was in it. They had um elites, grunts, jackals, brutes, all the stuff that we're used to, with the exception that by the time we meet the Covenant later on in the later Halo games, they're kind of broken up into different tribes per se. There are rivaling factions in the modern Halo storyline, and that was not really the case here in the early Forerunner saga. They weren't really at that point. They were one, one unified whatchamacallit. So yeah, I mean basically they developed a game that you were on a Halo ring. For those of you that don't know, Halo is a ring, almost like its own self-contained planet that's circular and a ring, and not a globe or a sphere. And you were on a self-contained ring, and you were um going to exist in this early Forerunner saga. um there isn't a lot known about Titan. I still wanted to touch on it because, we talked about it. There's more art than words. So I'm going to post this on our website, at www.memorycardlane.com. The link to some of the research that you can do on it, the Halopedia and the Wikipedias of the world, where you can see, because it's literally really interesting. It's a Halo it's Halo with literally the WoW interface, at the bottom of the screen, how you have all your abilities lined up across there. That's literally what it looks like. And it's just really incredibly fascinating that they had kind of worked this out. So um yeah, really kind of interesting that they worked this out. Also kind of nuts to think that it had a budget of $90 million, which was thrown away. Did you know that, Rob? They just threw away $90 million.
I wish I could do that.
I know. So in 2004, they started development on this, and then what they had to do in 2007 is essentially Titan was canceled. They never really announced that it was being developed. The world didn't really know about it until it was a thing after the fact. Really, most of what we know about it is interviews here and there, and concept art that was leaked are used in the portfolios of a lot of different artists that worked on it. But um, realistically, at this time, they had a server infrastructure. They had, a gameplay zone. They're said that their vehicle and gunplay mechanics are playable. But realistically, it was about this time that Microsoft was undergoing some leadership changes, and this game just kind of fell to the wayside. Um, you know, the it's said that the Wii had a lot to do with this. The Nintendo Wii changed the outlook of the gaming industry. People realized at that point that there was a lot bigger of a casual gaming market. And so Microsoft kind of started to shift their focus towards that casual market. That's probably where we got like the Kinect and Xbox Live Arcade and all that from. And in all the shifting, Titan just kind of fell to the wayside. Admittedly, not all of it is dead. Some of the concept art and models were used in Halo Wars, which of course was released in 2009 by Ensemble Studios, which is a really popular real-time strategy. But but yeah, there was briefly the ability, possibility of a Halo MMO RPG, which I kind of hope is what Infinite will end up kind of being. I don't really know, honestly. Um, you know, the the concept of MMORPGs is different nowadays. Is yeah, I don't know if it is or if it isn't, to be honest with you. Let's how about this as a statement? I don't think that the concept of MMORPGs has changed, but the concept of MMOs has definitely changed because a majority of games, I think a lot of games operate as MMOs, even if they aren't really made that way. Does that make sense? So do you get what I'm trying to get at here?
Yes, not really.
Well, I mean, like we just even games like look, let's be honest, the network interconnectivity is a real thing in the gaming industry. Everything's got a massively multiplayer element to it. Grand Theft Auto ended up having Grand Theft Auto Online. Red Dead Redemption ended up having Red Dead Online. We buy simple games like Need for Speed or Burnout, and you have leader tables and ghosts and everything. So, like I said, I think for me, everything that we play is so interconnected that I think that the concept of an MMO has definitely changed. Does that clarify it a little bit?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. I just even when we're playing non-MMO games, we play it on networks where our friends can see us and can talk to us, and yeah, it's just the way it is. But Titan was a thing. Titan was a massively multiplayer game, that was thought of way back in 1998, and they started development in 2004. And 3 years later, they canceled it without anyone knowing about it after having dropped about $90 million into it. Um, Officially, Titan is the most expensive canceled game that we know of. So, uh, do you want to know some other canceled games that were never
Yeah,
released?
let's hear him.
There was a Hobbit game planned a while ago, that during the movies when that was coming out, that they dropped about $1 million in before they canceled. Basically, they got as far as making gameplay demos that were based on Lord of the Rings movie scenes to demonstrate their commitment to making a Hobbit movie tie-in vision, and it wasn't anything. So uh the Hobbit, Peter Jackson and the team liked the game, but it was owned by Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers didn't want to drop any more money on it. So there was a
Well,
grand
Warner Brothers can suck it.
yeah, I know. There was a Warner Bro or I'm sorry. There was a Grand Theft Auto competitor that was canceled called This Is Vegas. Doesn't that sound interesting?
Uh, no, no, not particularly.
So uh Midway, they don't really do anything. Spent about 5 years and a buttload of money on this on what they thought was going to be a rival to Grand Theft Auto. Uh they knew they wanted to be in Vegas. They panned uh they decided it was going to be a satirical black comedy that was penned by a cracked writer, because cracked is the epitome of good writing here on the internet. Um and yeah, Warner Brothers screwed that one up too. It was developed by Midway, and then Warner Brothers bought Midway. They bought the development studio, at least for it, and they nixed it. You know, we talked about in the past how that happens sometimes because we got lucky because Red Dead Revolver, got wrapped up in an acquisition like that, but they liked it. Rockstar liked it, and so they made it. And of course, the rest is history. But here's an example where a studio was bought, Warner Brothers bought it, and $50 million was spent on this game. And then, they determined that what they had at the time was nothing, and they just said, nope. And then of course there's Fable Legends. Fable Legends, they dropped about $75 million. It was supposed to be the next, the next series in the Fable, in the Fable series. Supposed to be a free to play Fable, and yeah, that one just didn't. That one just didn't take. The gameplay wasn't good. They supposedly brought in a multiplayer expert at some point to try to polish it up, the fix the mechanics, the free to play mechanics, but it just didn't take. So $75 million, and then Microsoft just dropped that down. You ever played a Fable game?
I played Fable 3 for a bit, yes.
Mm, that's the worst one out of three of them.
Oh,
I mean, look, I played all of them. I had the collector's edition of Fable 3. That's how dorky I was about Fable. Um, so I'm not complaining. I mean, I enjoyed it, but I'm telling you just from experience that the third one is easily the worst out of the three. Like, by far the worst out of the three. If you kind of liked Fable 3, I would highly suggest going back to the first two because they were infinitely better. So, and I think we're getting a 4 now, aren't we?
I believe we are, yes.
So, yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, there were games that really, like, since we're on the topic of canceled games, we're kind of talking about it. Can you think of any other games that were canceled, like, that you were looking forward to? Anything, like, you don't pay attention to gaming news a whole lot, do you?
Not at all.
No. So, there's nothing that was canceled that was on your radar.
I cannot think of anything because I don't really know of games that didn't come out.
I can think of a recent one, which was Scalebound, which I was looking forward to. It looked cool. Platinum Games has a record of doing really good games, and here, Microsoft had it, and then they canceled it. And really cool 4-player co-op action RPG with dragons. It was dragons. 4-player co-op game with dinosaurs would be called Ark. There have been countless Star Wars games that have been canceled. There was Star Wars 1313, which, God, what was that? 2010, 2012, somewhere in there. That one got lost in the Disney when Disney bought LucasArts. That one kind of got mixed into there. What about PT? Do you remember PT?
What was it
The,
about?
the Silent Hills demo?
Yeah, I remember that. I didn't really play it, so I didn't really get to see if a game was something I wanted to play.
PT stands for playable teaser, and it was really freaking cool. And that was gonna be a Silent Hills that Guillermo del Toro and Hideo Kojima collaborated on, and then Konami canceled it, and so they went on um, to make Death Stranding, because in fact that's how they all came together. Norman Reedus, Guillermo del Toro, and Hideo Kojima originally, that Norman Reedus was going to be the protagonist in Silent Hills, which was the movie the reboot they were working on for that series. And when Konami canceled it, and Kojima's relationship with Konami deteriorated, they decided to part ways. Kojima, Del Toro, and Norman Reedus went on to go make Death Stranding, which is a really freaking weird game. In case you've never played it, I don't think you've played it. So, there was another uh competitive Tom Clancy game called Rainbow Six Patriots. That basically they scrapped and turned into a new game that was Siege. Basically,
Oh,
yeah. Oh, and you know what else? While I'm thinking of it, so I talked about a game that came out this week, Prey, the original Prey. Of course, we have a reboot of Prey that was made in 2017, but the original Prey in 2006. For a while, they were working on a cancellation or a cancellation. They were working on a sequel for it, and then it got a kind of, it got passed off in like development hell. Human Head Studios, who was working on it, was bought out by Bethesda, and then Bethesda canceled it in like, I don't know, 2014 finally. So what's that, like 8 years? It sat in development hell and then was canceled, and then they tapped another studio to completely reboot the series, which the series is good. There was going to be a Doom 4 at one time too. Basically, that was nixed, and that became Doom Eternal. The Doom reboot, and then Doom Eternal. So there's a bunch of games, honestly, in the canceled video game list. But back to wrapping it back around, since I've just been gabbing for 30 minutes about nothing. It's really crazy to think that Microsoft dropped $90 million into a Halo MMO, and then it became nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that is pretty wild.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
What?
Nothing. Nothing at all. So, um, you looking forward to Halo Infinite?
Um, I not as much as I thought I would be, but I definitely do want to play it and see what it's like. But I didn't honestly play a whole ton of Halo 5, so I don't know. I don't know. Just never got into Halo 5, I guess.
This is the 16th Halo game overall.
That's insane.
16 of them, absolutely. And we get Halo Infinite as Game Pass fans, which is so cool.
I forgot about that, and that makes me excited again. Free game, free game.
Well, not free. We
No,
pay for Game
you're right.
Pass, but we don't have to buy it over again. So, what's the next game you pre-ordered? Battlefield 2042, right?
I sure did.
So that's the next game you're excited for.
I also pre-ordered Farming Simulator 22.
Wow. Um, Honestly, most of the games I want to play are going to be released on Game Pass, so I really don't. Because I'm excited for Forza, I'm excited for Halo, um, I'm excited for Age of Empires 4, and I'm excited for Battlefield. I can't get behind pre-ordering anymore. I don't know why. We just get burned so often that it's really hard for me to support that concept. It just is. We don't even get perks for pre-ordering. Do you get anything special for pre-ordering these days?
At the moment, I can't recall, but I do know that it was like nothing special, just like um hold on a sec. So let's see, what is the Battlefield Ultimate Edition? Because I didn't go for the big buy purchase on Farming Sim, I just bought the game.
Gotcha.
But
Huh.
on Battlefield, I bought the Ultimate Edition, which gives early access to open beta, which whatever. I mean, it's cool, but I probably won't even do that. But gives you a melee knife, a weapon charm, and a tag, and then gives you year one pass, which is 4 new specialists, 4 battle passes, and 3 epic skin bundles. Looks like outfit pack and skin pack, a digital art book, and an exclusive soundtrack. So nothing like, I mean, it's cool. Like, actually, the year one pass is a nice addition, but you can get that for paying for the gold edition.
Yeah, true enough. True enough. Well,
The digital soundtrack could be very cool.
Battlefield soundtracks typically are cool. So
And that's why I was willing to dish out the extra, because the soundtrack alone, even if you could find it online, like just to own it. Yeah,
yeah, I know. All right. Well, I think I went a little bit off basis today, and I just spent a little bit of time talking about canceled games and Project Titan, and I don't really want to beat a dead horse. I'm planning on getting back on track for next week, which we'll cover in just a second. But before I do, is there anything that you want to add to today's episode of Halo Infinite, not Halo Infinite, Titan? canceled video games or just something that you want to talk about in general because you have the time and the platform. Okay.
At
Okay.
the moment, I mean, like, is this the last thing I'm gonna get to say this episode, or like,
Why you want to do your usual call out?
well, that's what I'm wondering. Like, is there something you're gonna set me up for something else?
No, I mean, I still no. I mean, I was just curious if there's something that you wanted to talk about since I basically just blabbed on forever about
Well,
my
I mean,
game.
you know a lot more about the canceled games and things. I haven't done a whole lot of research into canceled games. I don't really watch a lot of live television, so I don't see commercials. So when things aren't like a sure thing, I kind of just ignore them.
Yeah, well,
So, honestly, like, there's a new Dark Souls game coming out, and I had no idea until like months after the announcement. Well, I don't
you
know if it was
mean
months
you,
after, but
you mean the Elden Ring game?
well, yeah,
Uh,
exactly. But I had no idea it was a thing.
yeah, true enough. Well, I think, I think that's a good place for it then if you don't really have anything you want to add to the conversation. That's okay. Um I think that what I'm going to do for those of you that are curious because like I said this game exists mostly in concept art and portfolios of people that worked on the project, and things like that are kind of hard to convey in a podcast type of environment. That I'm going to post links to some of them on our website at www.memorycardlane.com. Also at memorycardlane.com, you can view past episodes and show notes for other episodes. You can find biographies about us. You can find a calendar of upcoming events that I need to update because now it isn't a calendar of past events. So sorry. You can also find links to our Discord where you can join us and play video games or add to the conversation. And you can also find a link to support us on Patreon. For only $2 a month, you can support our fledgling podcast. I just had to renew our domain name, which means, Rob, that it's been about a year since I conceived the idea of this podcast. As we know, it's episode 46. So we are, what, 6 weeks away from hitting 1 year, which is kind of exciting. 1 year of straight podcast episodes. I almost made it the entire year without deviating from the plan. I was 6 weeks short. I'm not even a little upset in myself. I think 46 weeks is pretty awesome. Go online to memorycardlane.com. You can also find links to our social media. I am on Twitter at David is wrong. That's David underscore is underscore wrong. Rob, tell them people's what you're doing on social media these days.
I can be found on twitch.tv/FATBOIRIPZ.
That is right. And I would like to take one moment before we take it out of here. So this is my last bit for today. Oh, you know what, Rob? I think before we do that, I'm not going to deviate that much. One thing we learned today, I never heard about This Is Vegas before in my life. So everything that I pulled in research about This Is Vegas, a GTA clone set in Vegas that Warner Brothers dropped $50 million on and then canceled was brand new to me. What is your takeaway for today?
Honestly, that's the same thing. That kind of might have been cool, but yeah, I guess we'll never know.
Nah, we're definitely never gonna know. Never gonna know. Never gonna know. So, okay. So my last thing for today's episode. Hello. I got an email today from someone I went to high school with who stumbled on this podcast and listens to video game podcasts. Pretty cool to have someone stumble across it like that. Plays Rocket League with his son. So I'm not gonna name names because I don't like to do it on the podcast, but you know who you are. It was very nice hearing from you. Don't be a stranger. So that's my takeaway for today. Rob, what do you got?
Uh, Awesome meetup. That's freaking awesome to hear. It's definitely, video games are a great way to reconnect and to meet new people. It's just amazing what they can do.
Very true.
But
Very true.
also, as always, I just want to take a moment to say thank you for listening. We obviously enjoy it, and sounds like other people are too. We're finally hearing from people, and it's wonderful to hear that. So we hope we continue to be something that brings you a little bit of joy throughout your day.
Very, very true. Very true. Well, with that being said, we're going to take it out of here for a week. A little bit shorter of an episode, but that's okay. Running an audible on an audible. Next week, we're definitely going to have stuff to talk about. I have extensively played the games. This is a trilogy of games. And so whether or not I have a chance to play them this week is irrelevant because I know these games like the back of my hand. They have also spawned a major motion pictures. Next week we're going to go back to God, this is like the king of bullet time. Like I'm trying to think about what makes it special, and it was literally like one of the first games I could ever remember that had a bullet time effect, and that time slowing bullet time effect like blew my mind the same way it did in movies with the Matrix. But way back when the first game in the Max Payne series did the same thing. And I remember needing a computer that would actually run this and then finally getting it to work and then just being absolutely blown away by this game. And I may have been a little bit too young because these are very mature games, and I don't. When was the first Max Payne? When do you think was the first Max Payne, Rob?
99.
Was it nine? You're looking at it.
Nope, sure ain't.
Max
I'm
Payne.
guessing.
Nah, 2001. So,
Dang.
so I wasn't too young for this. I was the perfect age for this. Yeah, so the Max Payne series was a really great game series. Really dark, mature topics that we're gonna dive into. Really great gameplay mechanics. Really set the bar for some really good cinematic narrative games at the time. And we're gonna talk about it. So we're gonna go to a dark place, visit our nightmares, and take a uh, probably not drug induced, but drug induced anyways, trip down memory card lane.
Do ba da ba 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 ya ba.